If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Weirding Way Media.
Right, Mr. Walters?
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Hello, and welcome back to Night Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. With us, as always, is Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you?
I'm great for a good time. Call Melody. On the wall by the phone.
Very good.
It plays in. Go ahead.
It's great. No, we'll get into that. I, of course, am your co-host, HP. Looking forward to digging into some taxi tonight. Tonight's episode that we are going over, and I want to remind everybody that we are doing this in broadcast order and not in order of filming. We are going over episode 4, which is Bobby's acting career. It was written by Ed Weinberger and Stan Daniels, and it was directed by James Burrows. Let's get into a little bit of what this is as good a jumping off point as any. You were talking about the telephone in the garage. What's going on with the telephone in this episode? It's kind of key to the A story in this episode, at least initially.
Once again, a plot revolves around the pay telephone.
Yes.
This bygone era of a bygone era. This relic of the past. Bobby's waiting for the call. It's an aspirational episode is what it is. It's Bobby wanting to get out of the cabbie life. And the only way that's going to happen is if everyone stays off the goddamn payphone. And his call from superstardom arrives and he gets to be in an off-Broadway play.
This is another of these episodes where he's reaching for the brass ring. In this case, Bobby apparently has had a self-imposed deadline on making it as an actor in New York. He gave himself 3 years, and that 3 years is up. The time is almost up. I think he has like a day. I think he's got like a day or two to meet his goal, or that's it. He's got to quit acting forever, which, let's be honest, would not be any great loss to acting. But
that's cold. He's a fine performer, Bobby Wheeler.
He's hammy. There's no question he's hammy, and we'll get to that.
Absolutely perfect for any soap opera or orthopedic shoe ad that might be available.
Or in this case, the commercial that he tries out for, which we'll talk about. The A plot, like I said, like we've been saying, is he's desperately waiting by this relic of a bygone era, the payphone, for his agent to call him and give him a job. He's desperate because he believes his dream is going to be over. And that's, it is what it is. Of all people, Alex, the pragmatist, says to him, if you want a job, you stand in line. This is a bit that he throws at Bobby to give him this, the gumption to go out. Instead of sitting here like an idiot waiting for a call, just get out there and get a job, Bobby. That's what Alex does. So Bobby goes out and starts beating the pavement, trying to find a job. He gets this is another relic of a bygone era. He gets a commercial audition, and
You know what my
this is
broker says? He said E.F. Hutton,
when
HP.
and when E.F. Hutton talks, pause. Everyone listens. I think E.F. Hutton is still around as a business, but they don't advertise at all anymore.
The thing is, maybe we'll get to it. Well, we'll get to it, I suppose, this commercial, but it's supposed to be like humiliating. Like, it's not humiliating enough that he's having to audition for a commercial, but he's just one face in a crowd of people. But I would say that's actually a benefit, because you don't want to be seen in a commercial as your first commercial or sort of your first acting outing.
Oddly enough, this was my favorite. I'm damning it with faint praise, but this was my favorite part of the show, is when he goes in for this audition, because there's just like sort of build up, and you see all of the actors waiting for the audition, like kind of like turning their heads in this very sort of unique fashion, and you don't know what they're auditioning for. And then it turns out it was sort of a funny reveal, and the fact that E.F. Hutton doesn't, they're not an advertising presence anymore, I thought was kind of funny. While this is all happening, we'll talk about the B plot, which is equally as inconsequential, but it involves Alex, and he's clearly he's a good guy. He's a dog lover, as we'll see. He rescues a Great Dane in his cab from an abusive owner who won him at a poker game. This guy gets in the cab, and he's trying to show off his dog Hamlet because he's a Great Dane. There's a joke about that in the show.
No, wait. There's a joke before it where he says, "Do you know why I named him that?" And he says, "Because he lives in a small German town." That was really good.
It was, but any plot that involves Reiger, no matter how inconsequential, is at least worth the price of admission. So,
yeah, any chance Judd Hirsch gets to just spout off a few lines from Shakespeare, which he does immediately after.
Yeah.
Everyone, remember, I'm a trained actor.
Never let it be said that I'm not the number one draw for this show.
In this episode about an actor who can't make it, just a reminder that the man in the cab that opens the episode is quite an actor. Proceed.
The guy who owns the dog tries to get the dog to do a trick, and the dog doesn't respond. And off screen, you see him whipping the dog with his leash, and he's being very cruel to the dog. So Reiger, being the good guy that he is, he kicks the guy out of the cab and holds on to the dog. And throughout the rest of the episode, this abuser, this animal abuser, tries to get the dog back. First, he goes back there and demands that they give him back the dog. And some way or somehow they get Latka to talk to the guy in his his foreign language, and they walk off, and it's haha, he's being confused by the language or whatever, which is fine. And then, just to wrap it all up, if we're going to wrap up each plot separately, then the guy comes back again. This time he's brought a cop, played by I believe his name is Tarian Black from Hill Street Blues, who later went on to be in Hill Street Blues as another cop. So that was kind of cool. So he comes back, asks that they return the dog. They argue. Bobby has this brilliant, like Solomon-like idea to, well, why don't you stand on opposite sides, put the dog in the middle, you both call the dog, and whoever the dog goes to is the rightful owner. Somehow the cop, ignoring all possession is 9/10 of the law and what have you, says, well, that's a good idea. So they separate. They both call the dog. The dog goes to the bad owner, and you initially think, oh, well, why did he go with that owner? And then all of a sudden you hear a very bad dubbed in, arr, 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 and the dog is now biting the owner. And the owner, again, a bad dub, is saying, take the dog back. I don't want the dog. And it's haha. Very funny. The dog gives the guy his comeuppance.
Are we talking about that moment right now? Because I'll talk about that moment, because it's absolutely awful. Where it's basically the dog, it's like a guy sort of twisting a little with a dog, and they've dubbed in this sound, and after what we've seen this guy do to the dog, and the way he's been pursuing the dog for no other reason than to continue to brutalize it, I wanted them to cut to this man's head flying through the air in a big jet of blood.
The overdubbing was bad. They probably put like some a treat in the guy's pocket so the dog would sit there and nuzzle him as if he was biting him, but whatever. It wasn't that effective.
I think we're supposed to get the idea that the dog was biting him in the ass. Ha ha.
It played a little too slapsticky.
In the scene before the cop frisks each of them, it's a meat frisk. He's got to make sure neither of them has any meat on them, and thus sway the dog's opinion. Why didn't they take their own advice and put meat on this guy and have him run out and this Great Dane chase him out? Immediate comic gold, I would think.
I would think so. To be fair, I found the whole thing rather embarrassing. This part of that B plot, it was unbelievable, unrealistic, and it was just embarrassing to watch. So that's the B plot from beginning to end. Talking about Bobby's bit, again, he's given himself a self-imposed deadline to try and get a job. The time comes, he has a party in his apartment. This is the first time you get to see his apartment, by the way. You see it a few more times in the show. And another one of the good parts about this episode that I will say is I love the set decoration for his apartment. I think we've talked about the sets and how wonderful they are, but I think they did an especially good job with his because it looks very lived in.
I have an entire page of notes on Bobby's thing because I have not seen this episode since I was a child, and as soon as I saw it again, I had an immediate memory of thinking as a child, I want to live there when I grow up. Obviously, Fonzie's apartment would have been good, but then you got to live above the Cunninghams. Fuck that. I wanted to live in Bobby Wheeler's apartment. And so I wrote down pretty much everything I could see on the walls, you know.
There's a lot of texture to it. There's a few, clearly either these are shows that he has acted in or is a fan of. There's playbills. I think there's a pair of like ice skates on the wall kind of hanging there. There's a Mets banner.
A poster that says feed lot.
Feed lot?
Feed lot. There's another poster I couldn't make much of, but something's going on at 11 p.m. There's this paper mache mask. If you notice, on his shelves, a lot of Chef Boyardee, the oversized can of lasagna, but the spaghetti and meatballs as well, some spinach.
This is perfect. This is exactly what you would expect to see in a starving actor's apartment, right? It's all this like crap instant food, canned food or whatever. It feels lived in. It feels authentic. There's a lot to see. There's a lot of little bibs and bobs to look at it. And this isn't the last time we'll see the apartment, but I love, it's like this sort of down. It's
a walk down. So through his windows, you can see just the lower halves of people going by. And it's not as extreme where it's like Laverne and Shirley, like you're just seeing feet walking through that's actually spooky and a little weird. This is kind of cool. You know what it reminds me of actually was the apartment that Michael Caine has in Dressed to Kill as the psychiatrist. That little, you walk down in, you know?
I didn't note this down as much as you did, but I really should have because that it goes without saying that that's one of my favorite parts of this particular episode, which isn't saying much, but credit where credit is due. The set decorators are on point as always. So his apartment looks great. He has everybody over because he still believes as midnight is approaching, it's like something out of like New Year's Eve or something. Something is going to happen. He's going to get a call from his agent, and he's going to get a job no matter what. And the time comes, passes, and he gets no call. Reiger, who's the eternal pragmatist realist, if you will, he basically says to Bobby, well, you know, Bobby, you gave it a shot, but maybe you're just not that good. I think I'm not sure if those are his exact words.
Oh, that's it.
In essence, he's just saying, look, you know, maybe it's just not your thing, man. Maybe it's just not going to happen. You gave it 3 years. You gave it your best shot. It's time to move on and maybe pick yourself up and do something else. And Bobby goes apeshit. It becomes a monologue where he kind of throws it back into Rieger's face. I think he says, like, you're not my friend anymore. I don't want to see you anymore, man. I don't even want to know you anymore. And is kicking him out. And Judd Hirsch plays this perfectly. He has this look like, well, I guess I've done it. I have no choice but to leave. And as he's leaving, Bobby kind of puts his arm around him and says, you still think I'm a bad actor? And it was just him proving that, yes, I do have what it takes, which is just stupid. Let's just be honest.
It's a good scene and it works.
I don't think so. I think Reiger's part of it works. I think Bobby is ham hock big time.
I half agree with you. I think what's wrong is it's so overwritten. It's obvious it's a monologue. You know, as soon as he opens his mouth, that this is an act that he's pulling on Rieger. And if you, whatever they filmed there, if you cut that down to like 3 sentences, then his performance would be as good as Judd Hirsch's. They gave him too much rope to hang himself. And that's exactly what Jeff Conaway will do.
I could not agree more. And that's a very good point about, and that's something I maybe should have kept in mind, which is the dialogue is very overcooked and overwritten.
Had he done that in 3 sentences, like, oh my God, I thought everyone but you would be behind me, and this hurts the most, and do the sad thing, and then launch into the anger and throw open the door, it'd be like, whoa. But it's this like, oh, it's like this. And it's not, it's the time and it's the medium and whatever, but it is so telegraphed that we're just kind of wasting time watching.
Less is more would have been the perfect. You're absolutely right, Father Malone. Less is more would have been appropriate, but subtlety was never going to be Bobby Wheeler's wheelhouse, so to speak, nor is it ever possibly going to be Jeff Conaway's wheelhouse. I found it, like I said, very hammy, very overdone, and to your point, very overwritten. So they kind of share a look, and it's like whatever. And call never comes. So then what does he do after the time passes and everybody's looking at him with concern and worried about what he's going to do? He just shrugs and says, "Hey,
I'll give it another 3 years, eh?"
What he's essentially done is take, and this is again a cardinal sin of storytelling, is he's taken what has transpired in the past, the previous 22 minutes,
and made it irrelevant.
Just crumpled it up into a big ball and threw it at you as an audience member and said, "You know what? You shouldn't care," because Bobby didn't care. Bobby just kind of shrugged and said, "So what? I'll give myself another 3 years." Well, why should I care?
Could everyone come over to my place tonight so I can just have a big dramatic meltdown and you can all witness it and it'll be meaningless in the end? Yeah, we'll be there, Bobby. There's going to be food. I'd like to make a segue, if I might, HB. And I'm going to use the same clumsy voiceover technique they used in this episode to get us to the third act, where instead of just filming a scene where characters sort of ladle out what the next bit of information we need, they just have Bobby read this endless bit of exposition over B-roll with downtown New York, which I'm never sad to see the B-roll. The B-roll in this episode is particularly good. In that opening scene with Reiger and the dog, we get some outside shots of that cab, like pushing it as it's driving down the street. Fantastic. I just want to mention a couple of little things that occurred to me while watching the episode. Do you know how much it is per mile there for a cab ride?
How much per mile?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. 15 cents a mile? That's my guess.
75 cents for the first 1/7 of a mile. And then 10 cents for each 1/7 of a mile.
Is that printed on the machine?
It's on the wall. And it's on the cab.
It's on the wall. Oh, in the cab. Oh, yeah. I've never. That's so interesting. I've never
70 cents a mile is effectively, with 75 cents for the first 1/7 of a mile.
It's interesting. I've seen that a million times, but I don't think I've ever actually thought it through.
Now, in the B plot in this episode, HB, the dog part of the episode.
Yep,
Hamlet. When we get back to the garage for the first time and we're easing our way into the A plot via the B plot, for no good reason, we get to see Tony Danza lift his shirt to show his six-pack, his pre-Brad Pitt Hollywood six-pack, right?
Yeah.
It's a big joke because Bobby has to punch something and punch me, and then he punches him and he crumples over like a sack of wet towels.
Like a sack of potatoes.
Okay. But the observation I want to say is we get to see how effectively fierce he is, even if he was unprepared to take that punch from Bobby Wheeler. We know Tony Danza, or Tony Banta, is a formidable character, right? When this guy, who we know to have beaten a dog, comes back looking for his dog for the first time. We have this big wall of solidarity. We're like, we don't see this dog, this I Am Spartacus scene. Instead of what should have actually happened on this 1970s set television series, where sometimes morality is a bit questionable on the show, Tony Banta walk up and punch that guy square in the face and say, "It's our dog now. If you come back, I'll kill you." That's kind of what I thought should have happened during that moment. Anyone in that fucking garage should have walked up with a wrench and said, "Did you hit this dog? You know what I do to people who hit dogs?" And then like grab his wallet and go, "I know where you live now, man."
Part of it might be, and I hate to say this, but maybe people weren't as plugged into animal rights as they are now.
They weren't, because it's a goofy B plot. And even when the police show up and Reiger's like, "This is my dog. This is a crazy man." That police officer should have said, "Well, it is with them. I mean, isn't possession 9/10 of the law, or so the myth goes? Like, so you can't just walk into somebody's place of business and go, 'That thing's mine. I'm here with a police officer and I'm going to take that.'" You go, "No, everyone here in this garage knows this is Reiger's dog. Where's your papers on the dog, sir?" And then the guy leaves. That would be the episode, which we can't help but thinking about, because the episode of this lighthearted romp of frivolity, because ultimately there are no consequences in the episode at all, begins with a man whipping a dog in the backseat of a cab.
It's awful, because it ratchets up in intensity, because he starts to do it, and Reiger says, he's because the dog won't perform, and Rieger's just like, "It's okay, I don't want to see." And then he keeps hitting the dog, and Rieger's like, hey, stop hitting the dog. And the guy doesn't stop, and he just keeps hitting and hitting and hitting until finally Rieger's like, "Get out of my cab, get out of my," like it just feels like it went from being kind of a joke to like, wow, this guy is not nice. Like, this is bad for the dog.
Here's where the B plot should have begun and ended. In the opening scene, Reiger gets out and punches the guy full in the face and then drives away with the dog.
I think Reiger could have physically beaten the guy up, but I think Rieger's moral compass would prevent him from wanting to be physical with somebody like that. He just wouldn't do it. He just doesn't believe in the violence, I think. Again, this tale of animal abuse is played mostly for laughs.
Yeah, wait, but okay, so Bobby, when he starts his speech, right? I'm kind of defending Jeff Conaway because, as I said, you can fix anything in editing, but this is television's a writer's medium. They wrote the words, they're on the set, they're effectively producing it, so he's going to say everything they said, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, watching this some 40 years after its original airing, my mind went to that Tenacious D sketch. They did one of their shorts, "The Death of a Dream," where they're listing like the different stages of the death of your dream because they can no longer be musicians. And I'm like, that's what I'm thinking of. Well, Bobby is just sort of turning on, about anger and denial, and then of course door-to-door rocking.
Let's break it down here. So let's talk about the good and the bad here. Not that we haven't already kind of gotten into it. I would say for me, there's only really 2, maybe 3 good things about this episode. I thought the E.F. Hutton commercial bit, it was kind of funny. Hamlet the dog is adorable. He's a giant, lovable Great Dane, clearly well trained. And Judd Hirsch is just great to watch perform as Reiger, as always. Other than that, I get nothing else. Oh, and the set decoration for Wheeler's apartment is spot on. But that's all I got. What do you have, Father Malone?
To that, I would add previously mentioned the meat frisk. I think that was a good thing in the episode. Okay. I think Danza's abs, as also previously mentioned, are a thing of beauty.
He's like a rock.
Jesus Christ, he's very fit. Do you know what time day shift starts?
At the cab company? Oh, is this another sign on the wall that I missed? I didn't know when does the day shift start? Like 5 in the morning or something?
8 a.m., sir. 8 a.m.
8 a.m.? Oh, I guess that makes sense.
You know when night shift begins?
Midnight.
No, it's absolute insanity what I'm about to say.
Okay.
3 p.m. 3 p.m. Where's graveyard? Graveyard doesn't get a sign. Graveyard doesn't get a sign because we've seen who works graveyard. Travis. Is there a possible world where Travis Bickle existed and at some point worked for Sunshine Cab Company? I mean, he would predate Reverend Jim, obviously, but Reiger probably would be there, right? Try and give Travis advice like Wizard did, and Travis just like, I don't want to talk to you.
Where it gets interesting is Louis would have been a cabbie at that
Oh
time.
my God, they would have been kind of buddies, right?
They
Oh,
would have
that's
been.
the other. Thank you. That's the other thing I did want to mention that was good in this episode, which is they call Louis down from the cage to help in their solidarity wall that they're not giving this dog back, and Louis answers a question. It's the equivalent of saying, "Well, does a bear shit in the woods?" And he says, "Do old ladies get mugged?" Like the answer is obvious. Do old ladies get mugged? Of course they do. How can we not mention that as probably the best thing in this particular episode?
I agree, but that brings me to my bad list. Actually, how's this for a segue? One of my bad things is that Louis hardly features into this episode at all. The story amounts to absolutely nothing. Any tension that's built up with Bobby's big decision is wasted when he just kind of ignores the stakes and shrugs at the end and says, "Well, whatever. I'll give myself 3 more years." When you do that, like you're basically saying to the audience, we don't care about the stakes. We don't care about what's happening with these characters. So why should you? Why should you invest your time and attention for the previous 30 minutes if it all comes to naught? If it's this decision that Bobby has to make and he just shrugs and smiles rakishly and says, "Ah, whatever." Oh, that's not cool.
You know, we did not mention Randall Carver in this episode because he is a sinkhole of charisma.
There's not much going on with this, really, not much to recommend this particular episode. This is the point of the program when we talk about how many yellow lights this episode gets.
What does a yellow light mean?
Thank you, Reverend Jim. I'm going to go ahead and just kick this off. It should be a surprise to nobody based on the tone of this review. This was 1 yellow light for me. It was minor and inconsequential. How about yourself, Father Malone? What do you give this episode?
I'll give it a 2.
That's generous.
I think the line, "Do old ladies get mugged?" is worth 2 yellow lights. I think the delivery is. I think that I think there's enough to recommend this episode to, I don't know, negate it.
I went back and forth. Is this a 2 yellow light? Is this a 1? So I originally, frankly, I had 2 yellow lights written here in my notes. But the more we talked about it, and the more we just got into like what I hated about this episode, I couldn't pretend that this to me was worth an extra yellow light.
Okay, let me let me try and sway you. The set decoration, as previously mentioned, it was thorough and fantastic. The performances across the board were consistent. It is overwritten. I think that's the problem with it. And it is too rooted in 60s sitcom tradition as far as what the plots were. But surely, my friend, the set decoration alone should merit its own yellow light.
It's close, but I'm going to remind you that this episode was written by Ed Weinberger and Stan Daniels. If this was written by some writer that maybe didn't do many episodes, or maybe this was a spec script that they made into an episode, fine. But these are industry veterans who have won Emmys and all sorts of accolades. This is not worthy of their abilities. I'm going to stick with 1 yellow light. They can't all be gems. Some episodes are better than others. This was not one of them. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on this episode of Night Mr. Walters, a Taxi podcast. Father Malone, where can people find your other proclivity activity things?
FatherMalone.com for all of my nonsense. For all of my audio nonsense, go to WeirdingWayMedia.com. That's all of my shows and an entire galaxy of podcast stars.
As for myself, HP, it's Weirding Way Media. You can hear this podcast as well as the Banachek podcast, Wolf and Raisin. Get a little Noise Junkies happening somewhere. That's also in Weirding Way Media. And you might hear my music and my not so excellent acting abilities on some episodes of Dark Destinations. So listen for that. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.